Cremation, an in-depth exploration of its historical, cultural, and theological dimensions. Cremation, a practice with deep historical and cultural roots, has been a subject of contemplation, debate, and ritualistic significance for millennia. From its ancient origins to its evolving role in modern society, cremation continues to evoke diverse opinions and spiritual reflections. In this extensive exploration, we delve into the spiritual, religious, and ethical dimensions of cremation, drawing insights from the Bible, various religious traditions, and contemporary ethical considerations to offer a profound and inspiring perspective on this significant topic. The ancient origins and historical context of cremation. The practice of cremation, derived from the Latin word cremare, meaning to burn, has been an integral part of human rituals surrounding death for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence suggests that cremation dates back to the Stone Age, around 3000 BC. Ancient civilizations, such as the Greeks, Romans, and even the ancient Hindus, practiced cremation as a means to honor the deceased and facilitate their journey to the afterlife. In these societies, cremation was not just a method of disposing of the body, but a profound ritual symbolizing the purification of the soul and its release from the physical world. In ancient Greece, cremation was particularly common among warriors and those of high status. The Iliad, an epic poem attributed to Homer, details the cremation of Patroclus, a close friend of the hero Achilles. After Patroclus' body was burned on a funeral pyre, his ashes were collected and placed in a golden urn, symbolizing the hero's transition from the physical world to the spiritual realm. This practice highlighted the belief that fire could purify the body and free the soul, allowing it to ascend to the afterlife. Similarly, in ancient Rome, cremation was prevalent, particularly among the elite. The ashes of the deceased were often stored in urns and placed in columbaria, buildings with niches for urns. The Roman poet Virgil, in his epic The Aeneid, recounts the cremation of Maecenas, emphasizing the purification and sanctification of the body through fire. Cremation in these cultures was seen as a sacred rite, ensuring that the soul was prepared for the afterlife. Biblical perspectives on cremation, a complex and varied history. The Bible, a foundational text for both Judaism and Christianity, offers various perspectives on the treatment of the dead, with a particular focus on burial. Traditionally, Jewish and Christian practices have favored burial, reflecting a deep respect for the body as a creation of God. The preference for burial over cremation is rooted in the belief that the human body, created in the image of God, should return to the earth as a sacred vessel. Genesis 3 verse 19 states, "By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return." This verse underscores the natural cycle of life and death, emphasizing the return of the body to the earth from which it was formed. The emphasis on burial in the Bible can also be seen in the burial of the patriarchs. For example, in Genesis 23, Abraham purchases the cave of Machpelah as a burial site for his wife Sarah, and it later becomes the resting place for other patriarchs and matriarchs. This practice underscores the significance of family tombs and burial as a means of maintaining familial and cultural continuity. Despite the emphasis on burial, the Bible does not explicitly forbid cremation. Several biblical accounts suggest that burning bodies was sometimes practiced, either as a form of judgment or purification. In 1 Samuel 31 verse 12, the men of Jabesh Gilead retrieved the bodies of Saul and his sons from the Philistines and burned them to prevent further desecration. This act, though not common, was done with a sense of honor and respect for the dead, reflecting the complex views on the treatment of bodies in ancient Israel. Another example can be found in Amos 2 verse 1, where the prophet Amos condemns the Moabites for burning the bones of the king of Edom to lime. This passage indicates that the act of burning bones was known and practiced in the ancient Near East, though it was not the norm in Israelite culture. The tension between burial and cremation within the Bible reflects broader cultural and theological dynamics, particularly concerning beliefs about the afterlife and bodily resurrection. Christianity's historical and evolving stance on cremation. In the early centuries of Christianity, burial was the predominant practice, symbolizing the hope of resurrection, a central tenet of Christian faith. The Apostle Paul, in 1 Corinthians 15 verses 42 to 44, speaks of the resurrection of the body, drawing a parallel to the planting of a seed. So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown is perishable, it is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. This passage has often been interpreted as support for burial, as it implies that the body, though perishable, will be transformed and glorified at the resurrection. However, as society evolved and cremation became more practical and accepted, Christian views on the practice began to shift. By the 20th century, the Catholic Church revised its stance, allowing cremation under certain conditions. The Church now permits cremation provided that it is not chosen as a denial of faith in the resurrection of the body. The Church teaches that the cremated remains should be treated with the same respect as a body, meaning they should be buried or entombed in a sacred place rather than scattered or kept at home. This nuanced approach reflects the Church's understanding of evolving cultural and practical considerations while maintaining the theological principles of respect and reverence for the deceased. Other Christian denominations have also adapted their views on cremation. Many Protestant churches have become more accepting of cremation, recognizing that the focus should be on the resurrection of the soul rather than the specific treatment of the body after death. The shift in Christian perspectives on cremation illustrates the flexibility of religious practices in response to cultural and societal changes, while still upholding core theological beliefs. Cremation in Hinduism and Buddhism. Rituals of transition and purification. In contrast to the traditional Christian preference for burial, Hinduism and Buddhism have long embraced cremation as a deeply spiritual practice. Hinduism views cremation as a critical rite of passage, essential for the soul's journey to the afterlife. The practice is rooted in the belief in reincarnation and the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. According to Hindu teachings, the physical body is impermanent, while the soul is eternal. The Bhagavad Gita 2.22 explains this concept. As a person sheds worn-out garments and wears new ones, likewise, at the time of death, the soul casts off its worn-out body and enters a new one. Hindu cremation rituals are elaborate and symbolic. The body is anointed with ghee, clarified butter, and adorned with garlands and sacred ash. The eldest son or a close male relative lights the funeral pyre, symbolizing the release of the soul from its earthly vessel. The pyre, often constructed from sandalwood or other fragrant woods, is believed to purify the soul and aid its transition to the next life. After the cremation, the ashes are typically scattered in a sacred river, such as the Ganges, to further facilitate the soul's release from the cycle of rebirth. Buddhism, which shares some spiritual concepts with Hinduism, also supports cremation as a reminder of life's impermanence and the need for detachment from physical forms. The Buddha himself was cremated, and his relics were enshrined in stupas, serving as objects of veneration and reflection. This practice underscores Buddhist teachings on the transitory nature of life and the focus on spiritual growth and enlightenment. The Mahaparinibbana Sutta, a Buddhist scripture, describes the cremation of the Buddha and the distribution of his relics among his disciples, highlighting the significance of cremation in Buddhist tradition. Cremation in Islam and Judaism. Preservation and sanctity. Islam, in contrast, strongly advocates for burial, emphasizing the sanctity of the human body. The Quran prescribes burial as the appropriate method of interment, reflecting a belief that the body should be treated with the same respect in death as in life. Surah Al-Ma'idah 5:31 tells the story of Cain and Abel, where God shows Cain how to bury his brother, establishing burial as a divinely guided practice. Cremation is generally forbidden in Islam, as it is seen as a desecration of the body, which is believed to be created by Allah and deserving of respect. Islamic funeral practices involve washing and shrouding the body, followed by a simple burial facing Mecca. The Prophet Muhammad's own burial in Medina serves as a model for Muslim funeral rites. The emphasis on burial in Islam is tied to the belief in bodily resurrection, where the dead will be raised from their graves on the Day of Judgment. This belief reinforces the importance of preserving the body in a state that reflects the dignity and sanctity endowed by Allah. Judaism also traditionally favors burial over cremation. Jewish law, *halakha*, views the body as a sacred vessel, and burial is seen as a way to honor the deceased and return their body to the earth. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 7 reflects this belief. And the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. The Talmud, a central text of Rabbinic Judaism, elaborates on the importance of burial and the procedures involved, emphasizing that burial is an act of respect for the deceased. However, attitudes towards cremation have varied among Jewish communities, particularly in the modern era. Some Reform and liberal Jewish movements have become more accepting of cremation, provided it is conducted with dignity and respect. This shift reflects broader changes in Jewish communities regarding how religious practices are adapted to contemporary needs and beliefs, while still adhering to fundamental principles of respect for the body and the soul. Theological implications of cremation, resurrection, and eternal life. The theological implications of cremation extend beyond individual choices, touching on broader questions of life, death, and the afterlife. For many, the way they choose to be remembered after death reflects their deepest beliefs and values. In Christianity, the concept of bodily resurrection has historically influenced burial practices. The resurrection of Jesus Christ, as described in the Gospels, serves as the cornerstone of Christian faith, symbolizing victory over death and the promise of eternal life. John 11 verses 25 to 26 records Jesus' words to Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die." This passage has been a source of comfort and hope for Christians, reinforcing the belief in a future resurrection. While traditional Christian teachings have favored burial as a way to honor the hope of resurrection, modern theological interpretations have expanded to acknowledge that God's power to resurrect is not limited by the condition or location of the physical body. This understanding allows for a more inclusive view of cremation, recognizing that the essence of resurrection lies in the transformative power of God's grace, rather than the specific state of the physical remains. Romans 8 verse 11 provides further reassurance. "And if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies because of his Spirit who lives in you." This passage suggests that the resurrection is a divine act that transcends physical constraints. Hinduism and Buddhism, with their emphasis on reincarnation and the impermanence of the physical body, offer a different perspective on cremation. These traditions view death as a transition rather than an end, and the disposal of the body through cremation is seen as a natural and necessary step in the soul's journey. The teachings of karma and samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, provide a framework for understanding the significance of cremation within these religions. The Bhagavad Gita 2:20 further explains, "For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain." This passage underscores the belief in the eternal nature of the soul and the importance of releasing it from the physical body through cremation. Cremation and modern ethical considerations, sustainability, and cultural shifts. In modern times, the choice between cremation and burial is often influenced by practical, environmental, and ethical considerations. As urban populations grow and land becomes scarcer, cremation has emerged as a more sustainable alternative to traditional burial. The environmental impact of embalming chemicals, non-biodegradable caskets, and the extensive use of land for cemeteries has led many to reconsider burial practices in favor of cremation. Innovations such as biocremation, alkaline hydrolysis, and the use of biodegradable urns have further enhanced the ecological benefits of cremation, making it an appealing option for those concerned about environmental stewardship. Ethically, The decision between cremation and burial is deeply personal and can be influenced by a variety of factors, including cultural traditions, religious beliefs, and individual preferences. Some individuals find comfort in the idea of their bodies returning to the earth, in harmony with the natural cycle of life and death. Others may prefer cremation for its simplicity, efficiency, and the sense of closure it provides. Additionally, the option to memorialize the deceased through keepsakes, such as urns or jewelry containing ashes, offers a tangible connection for grieving families. The psychological and emotional aspects of cremation and burial also play a crucial role in the decision-making process. For some, cremation provides a clear and final end to the physical existence, allowing the focus to shift to the spiritual legacy of the deceased. The ability to scatter ashes in meaningful locations or keep a portion of the remains in a memorial keepsake can offer comfort and a sense of continued presence. Conversely, traditional burial practices offer a physical place of remembrance and reflection. Visiting a grave site, tending to it, and having a dedicated space for mourning can provide a sense of continuity and presence that some find lacking in cremation. Genesis 35 verses 19 to 20 describes the burial of Rachel and the setting up of a pillar on her grave by Jacob, which served as a lasting memorial for his beloved wife. Such practices highlight the importance of physical markers and dedicated spaces for remembrance in many cultures. Global perspectives on cremation, cultural and religious practices. The global landscape of cremation practices reveals that cultural context plays a significant role in shaping attitudes and rituals. In Japan, for example, cremation is the predominant practice, with over 99% of the deceased being cremated. This high prevalence is influenced by both religious beliefs, primarily Buddhism, and practical considerations such as limited land availability. Japanese cremation ceremonies often include a period of bone picking, where family members use chopsticks to transfer the bones to an urn, symbolizing the continuity of family ties and respect for the deceased. In India, cremation is almost universally practiced among Hindus, with the Ganges River serving as a sacred site for scattering ashes. The belief in reincarnation and the desire to release the soul from the cycle of samsara make cremation an essential rite in Hindu culture. The importance of cremation is reflected in the elaborate rituals that accompany the process, from the lighting of the funeral pyre by the eldest son to the scattering of ashes in holy waters. In contrast, in countries like the United States and Canada, cremation rates have risen steadily over the past few decades. This shift is driven by a combination of factors, including changing religious attitudes, cost considerations, and growing awareness of environmental issues. The diversity of practices within these multicultural societies highlights the importance of respecting and understanding the various factors that influence end-of-life decisions. Conclusion: cremation and the eternal questions of life and death. As we reflect on the significance of cremation in different religious and cultural contexts, it is essential to recognize the common threads that unite these practices. At their core, both cremation and burial are expressions of love, respect, and reverence for the deceased. They serve as rituals of closure and remembrance, helping the living navigate the complex emotions of grief and loss. Whether through the purification of fire or the return to the earth, these practices honor the sacredness of life and the mystery of death. In conclusion, cremation is a practice rich in history, spirituality, and cultural significance. By examining its roots in ancient civilizations, its evolving role in religious traditions, and its contemporary relevance, we can gain a deeper understanding of the profound ways in which humans honor and commemorate the dead. Whether viewed through the lens of the Bible, Hinduism, Buddhism, or modern ethical considerations, cremation offers a unique perspective on the eternal questions of life, death, and the afterlife. As we reflect on these themes, let us remember the words of Ecclesiastes 3 verse 20. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust all return. This timeless truth reminds us of our shared humanity and the cyclical nature of existence, inviting us to approach the topic of cremation with reverence, thoughtfulness, and an open heart. If you found this message insightful, Please subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends and family. Together, let us spread the word and deepen our understanding of these profound revelations. May God bless you and keep you in His grace.